songs that move the world, people who stir the heart, vibrations that can be felt. Come closer, let them into your heart. Vibration ripening in souls, grabbing us in peace, making us whole. Good forces in this world, not for good or gold they're hurled. Hear the tone of change, don't listen to the fool's cries. Don't heed their age, true strength comes from wise. Harmony can be calm, love reaches out a hand. Standing not on the world's edge has banished the discord from the land. Songs that move the world, people who stir the heart, vibrations that can be felt. Come closer, let them into your heart. Vibration ripening in souls, grabbing us in peace, making us whole. Good forces in this world, not for good or gold they're hurled. Hear the tone of change, don't listen to the fool's cries. Don't heed their age, true strength comes from wise. Harmony can be calm, love reaches out a hand. Standing not on the world's edge has banished the discord from the land. Hear the tone of change, don't listen to the fool's cries. Don't heed their age, true strength comes from wise. Harmony can be calm, love reaches out a hand. Standing not on the world's edge has banished the discord from the land.
Train of the Tides, a steam locomotive from a bygone era whose secret has never been unraveled. The reader is introduced to a quiet but mysterious setting, perhaps a desert railway station where a steaming locomotive suddenly appears, a relic from a bygone era that has never been forgotten. Introduce the performer, perhaps a scientist, a historian, or an adventurer interested in the impossible. Alternatively, an inexperienced passenger could end up on the journey. How and why is the locomotive traveling through time? A secret experiment, a magical coincidence, or a technological discovery? The locomotive is traveling in time and space for the first time. It could be a historical moment, a dramatic turning point in history, a significant invention, or the meeting of historical figures, or a subjective experience. The performers must discover that the locomotive travels not only on rails, but through dimensions and eras. This could be both fascinating and frightening. They experience the merging of present and past. The performers realize that time and space are not always linear. Some moments in time are fixed, while others could be altered or influenced depending on how the locomotive moves. The locomotive could have a power that not only influences what happens, but also could happen. Could deliberate intervention trigger disasters or unforeseeable consequences? Is it possible to intervene in history or just let things be? Why does the locomotive exist at all? What is behind its mysterious timetable and erratic time travel? Is it controlled by a higher power, or is it result of an ancient technology or magic? As the actors learn more about the locomotive and its ability, their relationship with the machine and the other travelers could deepen both in terms of responsibility and danger. The locomotive could be caught in a loop of time or led to an inevitable point in the future where they must make a decision, end the cycle of time or continue the cycle of eternity. At this point, the characters must confront their own fears and personal histories raised by their journeys. The past explains the future. What is the locomotive itself? Had a certain consciousness or an agenda of its own? Perhaps it not only takes the travelers to their destinations, but also influences the course of their adventures and confronts them with difficult decisions. The locomotive could be a mysterious artifact created long ago by an unknown civilization. Perhaps the travelers are about to discover the true purpose of this object, and the true purpose of time travel remains hidden. Any character could evolve through time traveling. A historian could become a time traveler who questions the understanding of history. An adventurer could gain a new perspective of life through the constant dangers. In each time they travel to, a ghost from the past could emerge, bringing them old secret conflicts or unsolved mysteries. These ghosts could also symbolize the characters' past and accompany them on their journey of self-discovery. Perhaps they discover that they are trapped in a time loop in which certain events keep repeating themselves. How do you break the cycle? Do they have to do something to change the course and affect relationship? The actors return to the point where they began their journey, but they are not longer the same. They have influenced and changed time, and the world has moved on. Was your protagonist just a puzzle? Does the story continue? But the real question remains. Was the ending really an end? Or does it just open up a new horizon that the reader, perhaps you too, can take a look at? Because what lies hidden in these pages is not only the story of those who embarked on the journey, but also the story of your own journey. Will the journey continue? You can only find out if you dare to take the next steps.
You hear the wind gently in the trees. Lukas sits there, lost in dreams, a life in peace, in harmony, as free free as the clouds drifting in the sky. His heart beats in rhythm with the earth. Nature is his home, his teacher from birth. Time flows softly, step by step, and with it he moves into the new with no regret. With no regret. You hear the wind gently in the trees. Lukas sits there, lost in dreams, a life in peace, in harmony, as free as the clouds drifting in the sky. His heart beats in rhythm with the earth. Nature is his home, his teacher from birth. Time flows softly, step by step, and with it he moves into the new with no regret.
Lukas, a boy born and raised in a remote village, lives a simple life in the countryside. His parents, farmers, attach great importance to hard work, but not to education. He often helps on the farm and dreams of a bigger world. One day he gets the chance to attend a boarding school where he is confronted with a completely new world, a world characterized by books, discipline, and scientific thinking. At first, he feels overwhelmed by the modern technology and complex concepts he encounters. But one day, during a lesson on the laws of physics, he begins to see the world around him with different eyes. The teacher explains the principle of force and motion, and the boy remembers the horse he steers on the farm and suddenly understands that the same principle applies to the machine that cuts the crops. A small spark of interest in science is kindled in him. Over time, he discovers the basic laws of physics, gravity, the movement of particles, the concept of energy, and begins to question these concepts in his own environment. Why does the apple fall from the tree? How does the wind that moves the sailing boat work? These are simple questions, but they begin to arouse the boy's curiosity. With the support of teachers and classmates, he not only learns how the world works, but also how he can expand his own thinking and introduce himself to new ideas. The boy grows into an inquisitive teenager who not only wants to understand the laws of physics, but also how they can be applied in this world. Boarding school becomes the place of discovery and change for him, a step on the way to conquering the world of science for himself. A week in the life of Lukas. Monday. It's early in the morning. The first ray of sunlight breaks through the windows of Lukas' room, and he immediately ramps out of the bed. Still in his pyjamas, he puts on his valise and rushes out to the barn, where is Mother Maria already waiting for him. She speaks in a gentle voice as she feeds the cows, and Lukas helps her prepare the milking machines. The barn smells of hay and fresh milk. It is the world he loves. But something is different today. George, his father, has promised him that he can drive the tractor today. Lukas can hardly believe it. The moment has arrived. When his father hands him the keys, Lukas feels a mixture of nervousness and pride. Driving the tractor is not a game, Lukas. You have to understand the responsibility, warns George in his rough but warm voice. Lukas looks, sits behind the wheel, and starts the engine. The humming sound of the tractor fills the yard, and Lukas suddenly feels like the ruler of the wide open field. He drives slowly through the field, steers skillfully, and discovers a completely new perspective of the farmyard. It's the first time he feels like he's control of the world. After a few laps, he stops proudly. "Well done," says George. A short, curt praise. But for Lukas, it feels like he has conquered the whole sky. After a long day in the barn and in the fields, Lukas decides to spend some time with his friends. He meets Anna, a girl from the village who always helps with the cows. She is a year older than him and very self-confident. Anna is always challenging Lukas, be it in a race to the hill or climbing in the old apple tree. Lukas feels uncomfortable around her, a mixture of ambition and admiration. But when Anna asks him deeper questions about technology and machinery during a conversation about tractor repairs on the farm, Lukas realizes how interested he is in these things. The conversations with Anna are different. They are profound and present him with new questions that he later seeks answers to. Thursday. On this day, Lukas realizes for the first time that technology is more than just machines. In the farm's workshop, George shows him how to maintain an old steam engine. The boiler gargles and steams, and Lukas is fascinated by the wheels that turn and the gears that mesh. George explains the principles of mechanics and physics behind everything. Lukas listens attentively, asks questions, and begins to understand that these machines are at the heart of life on the farm. That evening, as he lies in his bed, he thinks about the many cogwheels and streams of steam and wonders whether he will one day be able to invent such a machine himself. Friday. The sun burns hot on the field. Lukas works together with Anna, who is visiting again. This time they are helping to plant seedlings in the vegetable garden. Anna keeps talking about the new technology in agriculture, but the possibility of irrigating fields more efficiently and building machines that can do the work faster. Lukas is curious and listens attentively. And as he sits in the shade during the break, he asks her a question that leaves her a little puzzled. Do you think there could be machines that think for themselves and help us achieve even more? Anna shakes her head and laughs. That sounds like something out of a book, she says, but Lukas' thought stays with him. Saturday. Lukas' parents have organized a small village festival where the villagers come together. The atmosphere is lively in the afternoon, with children running around, laughing and playing. But Lukas notices something else. He keeps feeling watched by the girls of his age, especially Anna, who now keeps looking at him with a small smile. He is unsure about dancing, and when Anna asks him to try a few steps with her, he falters at first. But then he realizes that her closeness is something else. She not only challenges him, but also in a way that makes him think. Sunday. The day ends like any other, but for Lukas, this Sunday feels special. The conversations with Anna and the experiences of the week have ignited a spark in him that has not been extinguished. He wants to learn more about the machines, about the world of technology, and how everything works. But the first tender bonds with Anna have also changed him. Over the next few weeks, he will keep searching for answers in the technology, but also in his own feelings, which he is slowly beginning to understand. Lukas, the boy from the rural idyll, has learned more about himself and the world in this 1 week than in the many years before. It was the first step on a path that will lead him to great discoveries, not only in the world of technology, but also in his own heart. Farewell from farm. It's a rainy afternoon when Lukas packs his things to move to boarding school. The courtyard, which has always been so familiar to him, suddenly feels strange. The rain is pattering against the window of his room and fog is gathering in the fields outside. The sounds of life on the farm, the mooing of the cows, the rustling of the wind in the trees, seem distant to Lukas, almost like a memory of another life. His suitcases are already packed in the corner and he can hardly believe it. He is now going to immerse himself in another world. His mother, Maria, helps him with the final preparations. She is quiet, her hands trembling a little as she tucks his shirt in once more. "You'll do well, Lukas. You have so much talent," she says in a soft voice. He sees not only pride in her eyes, but also deep concern. Maria had always believed that Lukas would grow in the safety of the farm, but she knows that he is now needing a new challenge. His father, George, who usually seemed to be strict, gives Lukas a big hug. "Always remember, the work never stops, but you have to find your own way, Lukas. We are proud of you." But there is also a softness in George's eyes that Lukas has never noticed before. Perhaps his father is more afraid of saying goodbye than he is. Saying goodbye to Anna. On the evening before Lukas' departure, he meets up with Anna again. She is standing on the familiar hill where they used to play and laugh together. The rain has subsided and the last rays of sunshine are fighting their way through the clouds. Anna looks at him with a smile, but something else is reflected in her eyes, something that Lukas finds difficult to interpret. "So you're really leaving," says Anna, and takes a step towards him. It's not the usual cheeky challenge she used to have ready for him. Today she is quieter, more thoughtful. "Yes, I have to," replies Lukas, who can't take his eyes off Anna. I don't have a choice. They told me to go to boarding school because of my talents." Anna looks, but it seems as if she knew that this day would come at some point. I always knew you were something special, she says, but her voice sounds almost sad. But you're not going to forget me, are you? Lukas looks at Anna, and for a moment he feels torn. Of course not, he finally says, although he knows that it will be difficult to maintain the old connections in this new world that awaits him. There are so many questions he asks himself, so many things he doesn't yet understand. I'll always think of you, says Anna, pulling him into an unexpectedly gentle embrace once again. And when you come back, you have to tell me everything you have learned, promised? Lukas looks, feeling relieved and infinitely heavy at the same time. Saying goodbye to Anna, to his family surroundings, is more than he can really comprehend at this moment. Saying goodbye to the farm and making a new start. The next morning, the time has come. The car is at the door, and Lukas looks again at the land that was so familiar to him. The smell of freshly mown grass, the bubbling of the stream nearby, the pounding of hooves on the ground. He will soon leave it all behind. George helps him to load the suitcase into the lorry, and with one last glance at the farmyard, Lukas calls out a quiet goodbye. The tractor is still standing in the field, as if he wanted to offer him a place in the world of machines forever. A new chapter awaits him at boarding school, but Lukas knows that the real journey is just beginning for him, on the trail of technology, science, and perhaps also a whole new understanding of himself. It was hard to say goodbye, but it was the first step towards a future that Lukas will tackle with great enthusiasm. The morning of the farewell begins early. The mist still hangs over the fields as Lukas walks through the yard with heavy steps. The sounds of the animals, the snorting of the horses, the bleating of the sheep are as familiar to him as his own breathing. He runs his hand over the run wood of the stable as if he wants to memorize every detail. His mother Maria packs him some provisions. His father George stands leaning against the tractor, folds his arms and just looks on, a sign of pride and quiet melancholy. But the harvest moment is saying goodbye to Anna. She stands a little apart, her hands behind her back. Her blonde hair is fluttering in the morning light. Would you write to me? She asks quietly. Lukas swallows. Sure. A brief smile, then she turns and leaves. No hug, no long hesitation. But Lukas knows that affects her just as much as it affects him. His father starts the old Mercedes. The journey begins. As the car drives along the road, Lukas turns around once more. Anna is no longer there, but he knows that he will never really lose her. The farm, the animals, the life he has led here, all of this will always remain a part of him. But now he will immerse himself in another world, one that will open doors for him, a world in which he may learn more about himself and his talents. The journey. The landscape passes by. Lukas sits in the back seat, looking out of the window. The narrow roads of the Eifel give way to wide motorways, and with every kilometer he moved away from everything he knew. He thinks of the hours he spent with Anna, the smell of hay in summer, the first time he was allowed to drive the tractor. Now everything is going to be different. Will he feel at home at Salem? Will he find friends there, or will he just be surrounded by geniuses who are superior to him? When the first towers of Castle come into view, he feels uneasy. Is this where he is supposed to live? Here, in a huge, almost intimidating building, full of strangers? As the carriage drives up the long avenue, Lukas feels his chest tighten. The tall trees to the left and right of the road form a kind of tunnel through which a car glides. The light of the afternoon sun falls in flickering patterns on the pavement. Then, with a final bend, the scenery opens up, and there is it, Salem Castle. The grey walls rise up majestically, entwined with ivy that runs in wild tendrils along the facades. The windows are tall and narrow, some decorated with ornate stained glass. The towers reach for the sky as if they want to touch the clouds. The building breathes history, and for a moment Lukas feels as if he has been transported back in time. In front of the main entrance, a solid wooden door with ornate wrought iron fittings, stand a few pupils in black jackets with the school's emblem on the chest. They are talking to each other, laughing, casting curious glances at the arriving car. A chime sound somewhere in the distance, a deep melody sound that echoes through the open courtyard. Lukas gets out of the car. The gravel crunches under his shoes. The air smells of damp leaves and stone. A rooster crows in the distance, a strange contrast to the grandeur of this place. Then the door opens and a man in dark suit steps out. His face is stern but not unfriendly. "Welcome to Salem," he says in a calm voice. Everything is new and exciting now. The tall buildings, the noise of the large corridors, and the unfamiliar faces. Lukas feels lost at first, but then he meets his first mentors who assign him the space. The space for his ideas increases. His curiosity is fueled, and Lukas realizes that he can not only learn, but also grow in his new environment. But in his heart remains the farm, the sun in the field, and Anna, who constantly challenges him to think ahead. Dinner in the large hall is unfamiliar, not a relaxed get-together like at home, but organized rows, conversations about books and projects. Lukas feels out of place, but when he looks around, he realizes that some of the others look just as lost as he does. Lukas swallows. This is the beginning of a new chapter, and he has no idea what awaits him.
Look at me, listen to me, listen to the voice, finding no time. All who are looking for you tomorrow, you can book in love, hear the sound of that power that creates love in you. Hear the deep sound of love, it makes you peaceful, do you hear? Look at me, listen to me, listen to the voice, finding no time. All who are looking for you tomorrow, you can book in love, hear the sound of that power that that creates love in you. Hear the deep sound of love, it makes you peaceful. Do you hear?
The first experiences. Lukas immerses himself in a new world. The lessons are challenging, and he is particularly fascinated by the physical lessons. For the first time, he has access to state-of-the-art laboratories and works on experiments that he would never have been able to do on the farm. But there are also challenges. A pupil from a rich family makes life difficult for him. Lukas is just a farm boy to him. Discipline is tough, and the first few weeks are at a battle against homesickness. But then he discovers an old book on space and time mechanics in the library, which sparks his enthusiasm. Every day he grows more into his new world, but Anna and the farm remain deep in his heart. The first lesson. Lukas sits in a room with high ceilings and large windows through which the grey morning light falls. The walls are panelled in dark wood, and at the front is a huge blackboard with an ornate carved frame. The chairs and tables are made of solid wood, old but well kept. Generations of pupils have sat there. Next to him sit around 15 other young people, all wearing the same black school uniform with the Salem coat of arms on the chest. Some seem confident, others unsure, like him. Suddenly the door opens, and a teacher enters the room, tall, lean, with a sharp gaze behind rimless glasses. His posture is upright, almost military. He places a book on the table, opens it, and then looks over the edge into the room. My name is Dr. Weiss. I'm your tutor and physics teacher. Welcome to Salem. His voice is calm but unmistakable. Before we start the lesson, a few basic rules. Punctuality is not a suggestion, it's a given. Everyone comes prepared. Respect is not demanded, but expected. Anyone who slacks off will quietly realize that Salem is no place for mediocrity. Lukas swallows. That sounds harsh. Next to him, a boy with blonde, perfectly combed hair snorts quietly. His expression shows boredom, as if he's heard it all 1,000 times before. Lukas decides to keep an eye on him. Another, with tousled hair and freckles, whispers to him discreetly, "Don't worry, Weiss is only so strict at first. It gets better later." Lukas returns the first caution smile. A potential friend? But as soon as he relaxes, Dr. Weiss raises his head abruptly. His gaze pierces the room. "Which one of you can tell me what the principle of inertia says?" Silence. Lukas' heart is pounding. He knows the answer. Should he speak up? Or should he hold back? He hesitates, and just at that moment, the blond boy's hands snap up. It says that the body remains in a state of rest or uniform motion as long as no external force acts on it. His voice is clear, almost arrogant. Dr. Weiss looks. "Correct. And your name?" "Alexander von Berg." Lukas memorizes the name. There is arrogance in his boy's voice, but he seems smart. Before he can think any further, Weiss continues. "Then let's see if you can not only memorize definitions, but also think. Imagine You're sitting on a moving train. Suddenly it stops abruptly. What happens to you and why? Lukas knows. This time he raises his hand. Weiss looks at him. Yes? You are thrown forward because your body wants to keep moving. The sudden braking only affects the train, not the body immediately. A moment of silence. Then a brief look to recognition. Good. Your name? Lukas. Welcome to class, Lukas. For the first time he feels like he actually belongs there. At Schule Schloss Salem, students typically live in small residential groups that form as so-called houses. These houses usually have twin or triple rooms, which promotes a close-knit community among the students. Lukas therefore shares his room with two other pupils. Returning to the room. After the lesson, Felix, the roommate, guides Lukas through the castle's winding corridors. The walls are lined with old portraits of former students and founding members. The wood creaks softly under their feet. Her room is at the end of the corridor, with a window that offers a sweeping view of the inner courtyard and the meadow beyond. Lukas enters the room and sees that the third boy is already there. He has glasses with 6 lenses and is reading a thick physics book. This is Max, introduces Felix. He is our walking encyclopedia. Max looks up and smiles slightly shyly. Welcome, Lukas. If you need help with physics, just let me know. Lukas suddenly feels more at ease. 2 roommates, both different but likable in their own way. They set up their things together, talk about the teachers, and exchange first impressions. Felix tells anecdotes about the older students, while Max prizes the advantages of the library. Dinner together. As the dinner bell rings, 3 of them make their way to the large dining room. The room is high and spacious, with long tables and a large candelier that spreads a warm light. The tables are already set, and the students stream in groups or pairs, talking animatedly. Lukas sits down between Felix and Max. The meal is simple but tasty. A hearty soup with bread and a small salad. While they eat, Felix introduces the other pupils. A few rows away sits Alexander von Berg, the boy from the class, surrounded by a group who laugh and gesticulate a lot. But there are also other faces. There is Marie, who listens attentively and laughs quietly whenever her neighbor, a tall boy called Jonas, tries to eat a banana without hand in order to win a bet. And Sophie, who talks about the latest physics competition and gives Lukas a curious look. During the meal, Felix explains that every student in the dining hall has certain duties, from setting the table to washing up. It's about taking responsibility, he says. Everyone is part of the community here. The evening draws to a close as the students head back to their rooms. Lukas feels a slight tiredness, but also a growing anticipation of what is to come. The first lesson and dinner together have shown him that Salem is a place of challenge, but also one of community and friendship. The first full day at school. The morning starts early, much too early for Lukas' taste. A loud shim echoes through the corridor, followed by pounding footsteps on the wooden floor. Felix, who is already sitting cheerfully on his bed, grinds. Get up, Lukas. There's no sleeping in here. Lukas blinks sleepily, while Max is already getting dressed and scribbling the first formula in his notebook. Maths test at 8 o'clock. I need to be prepared. Lukas sighs. Welcome to Salem. Morning sports and breakfast. Before lesson begins, all the pupils have to line up for the morning exercise. The castle courtyard is still shrouded in cool morning air as they line up in rows. A teacher with a serious face gives the commands. 3 laps around the courtyard, then stretching is exercise. Lukas jogs alongside Felix and Max. The fresh air is good for him, even though the complaints about the early hour. When they return to the dining room, the smell of freshly baked bread and hot tea fills the air. Breakfast is simple but nutritious. Porridge, fruit, and a cup of cacao. While they are eating, Marie sits down with them. Today you have physics with Dr. Weiss. He's supposed to be pretty strict. Felix rolls his eyes. Perfect. Our first day and the drill instructor straight away. First lesson, physics with Dr. Weiss. The class sits tensely in a bright room with large windows. A lean man with a grey beard stands at the blackboard. He scrutinizes the new pupils with a piercing gaze. Physics is the basic of all progress. If you are here to get superficial answers, you can leave right now. A few pupils shift nervously in their chairs. Lukas, on the other hand, is fascinated. Dr. Weiss continues. Our universe is made up to patterns, energy, and forces that we need to understand if we want to change the world. He then draws a huge formula on the blackboard, the theory of relativity. Lukas can feel his heart beating faster. This is not about boring textbooks. This is about the big picture. Dr. Weiss asked a question about time dilatation. No one answers. After a moment, Lukas hesitantly raises his hand and gives a cautious answer. The teacher looks at him for a long time. Then he looks. That's interesting. You have potential. Marie grinds at Lukas from the side. Not bad for the new guy. Lunch break and new friendships. After the intensive physics lesson, the lunch break is a welcome respite. The pupils sit on the benches in the school garden, enjoy the sun, and talk about their lessons. Jonas, the boy from yesterday, joins them. Weiss is tough, but if you impress him, he'll teach you things you'd otherwise only learn at university. As Lukas talks to the others, he realizes that he really can learn something here. And maybe Salem won't just be a school, but a home. The educational concept at Schloss Salem is unique and is characterized by holistic support that goes far beyond traditional school lessons. The school not only promotes the academic skills of its pupils, but also places great emphasis on personal development, social responsibility, and practical experience. This aspect could be particularly exciting and challenging for Lukas. Experimental and social education as a challenge. In the first year, Lukas is regularly confronted with activities that challenge him out of his comfort zone and encourage him to think outside the box. Aside from academic training, adventures and social projects are on the timetable. For example, Lukas could be sent on an outdoor expedition weekend with his classmates. There, without the usual comfort conditions, he has to survive in nature, learn to resolve conflicts together with others, and work as a group. This bonds him together, but also challenges his independence and problem-solving skills. Here, experimental education not only promotes teamwork, but also confidence in one's own abilities. Learning about nature, reading star maps, and overcoming obstacles boost Lukas' self-confidence and his belief in his own abilities. At the same time, the importance of responsibility in dealing with resources and teamwork further strengthened. Volunteering and social learning.
Blue, blue is the sky so wide. Creation's hand placed it with pride. Find it shining on the ocean. Sunlight dancing in its motion. Blue stands for the maker's might. Cool yet clear, it bathes in light. Guides the forces, firm and bright. Fends off shadows dark as night. Chaos has no place to stay. Order leads the rightful way. Peace it brings so strong, so true. No more war, just skies of blue. Harmony is what we seek. Blue will give the calm we need. Peace restored without a fight. Only blue can make it right. Blue, blue is the sky so wide. Creation's hand placed it with pride. Find it shining on the ocean. Sunlight dancing in its motion. Blue stands for the maker's might. Cool yet clear, it bathes in light. Guides the forces, firm and bright. Fends off shadows dark as night. Chaos has no place to stay. Order leads the rightful way. Peace it brings so strong, so true. No more war, just skies of blue. Harmony is what we seek. Blue will give the calm we need. Peace restored without a fight. Only blue can make it right. Blue, blue is the sky so wide. Creation's hand placed it with pride. Find it shining on the ocean. Sunlight dancing in its motion. Blue stands for the maker's might. Cool yet clear, it bathes in light. Cool yet clear, it bathes in light. Guides the forces, firm and bright. Fends off shadows dark as night. Chaos has no place to stay.
Another key element is social commitment, which all pupils are required to undertake in a voluntary service program. Lukas could decide to join the Red Cross or work in an environmental protection project, which would give him a new perspective on the needs of society and what it means to take responsibility. Such projects would not only help Lukas to apply the theoretical knowledge from class in practice, but also make him realize the need for empathy and compassion in the real world. Especially as someone who comes from a more traditional rural background, this experience could open up new social horizons for him and help him to broaden his view of the world. Creative development. In addition to all the school and social commitments, there is also plenty of room for creative development. Lukas could join a theater group or hone his craft skills in a metal or wood workshop. Such creative projects not only develop his practical skills, but also allow him to discover another side of himself, which could perhaps be combined with his scientific interest in technology and physics. The opportunity to perform a play of part of a team or work on an artistic project allows Lukas to see how different disciplines are connected. Growth and personal development. Lukas' journey at Salem will not only challenge him academically, but will also allow him to grow as a person. He will learn that it is not just about knowledge, but about the ability to act in the world, to take responsibility, and to help shape the world around him. All these experiences and challenges will not only be useful for him at school, but will also help him grow into a responsible, creative, and compassionate adult who thinks beyond his own interest. Lukas' decision to join the Fire Brigade group.
When the siren screams through the street, we stand ready, no retreat. Helmets on, boots pulled tight, we rush ahead into the fight. Firestorm and darkest night, we stand tall, we hold the line. Brothers, sisters, side by side, for our town with hearts of pride. We stand strong when the flames rise high. Where others run, we won't deny. Through the storm, we hold our ground, like solid rock, like fire unbound. Suits are heavy, the air is hot. Every step a cost hard bought. But in your eyes I see no fear. Together we stand with strength sincere. Years go by, we learn, we grow. From apprentice to mentor, from ember to glow. Duty turns to honor, fear into might, and deep inside the fire burns bright. We stand strong when the flames rise high. Where others run, we won't deny. Through the storm, we hold our ground, like solid rock, like fire unbound. Years go by, we learn, we grow. From apprentice to mentor, from ember to glow. Duty turns to honor, fear into might, and deep inside
Lukas is faced with one of the first big decisions in Salem. Which voluntary commitment should he choose? The choice is not easy for him. Should he opt for environmental protection or caring for the elderly? But then he hears about the fire brigade group, a challenge that immediately captivates him. He remembers his father George telling him about his own youth and the sense of duty that the firefighter has to have. Firefighting isn't just a job, George often had said. It's about helping people, saving lives, and taking responsibility in an emergency. This idea appeals to Lukas on a deep level. He senses that in this group he would not only be doing something for the community, but would also have the opportunity to prove himself, take on responsibility and test his physical and mental limits. The first day in the fire brigade group. On his first day in the fire brigade group, Lukas is greeted by an older pupil, Jan. Jan is an experienced firefighter and knows exactly what is required. Lukas, it's not just about quick missions and lots of action, he explains calmly. It's also about discipline, preparation, and the ability to stay calm when it counts. Today, we start with the basics, putting on the right equipment, understanding safety protocols, and, of course, teamwork. Lukas is initially overwhelmed by the amount of information. The uniform, the heavy equipment, and the detailed knowledge about firefighting and emergency management seem like a whole new world to him. But instead of feeling discouraged, he is determined to push through. The mixture of physical exertion and mental concentration appeals to him. The first challenge. The first few weeks in the fire brigade group are anything but easy. Lukas had to get used to the strict rules and the physical demands. Some days the exercises are tough, lifting hoses, practicing the correct use of the extinguishers, and simulating firefighting scenarios. But the more he practices, the better he gets. He is particularly impressed by the teamwork. However, move has to be done at the right moment, how the group sticks together and work towards a common goal. During the exercise, Lukas often feels challenged, but also strengthened. He noticed how the self-confidence grows, especially during the extinguishing training, with the simulated smell of fire and hot water hitting his protective clothing. It's a real test of his skills and courage. The first mission. After a few weeks in the fire brigade group, Lukas is called out on his first assignment. It's a training operation in which the fire brigade simulates the evacuation of a building. The air is heavy and the excitement builds as Lukas and his group advance into the training areas. For a moment, he feels like a real firefighter. Remember, Lukas, you're not alone. We are a team, Jan reminds him. And at that moment, Lukas really understands what it means to bear responsibility. In this group, it's not only important to act quickly, but also to trust your teammates. The mission ends successfully. There are no real dangers, but the excitement and the feeling of having done something worthwhile is overwhelming for Lukas. In the days that follows, he feels like a new person. He has not only tested his physical abilities, but also his emotional strength. It is the first real challenge he has faced in Salem, and he has mastered it. Lukas' development through the fire brigade group. Through his involvement in the fire brigade group, Lukas not only learns practical skills such as firefighting, but also important values such as responsibility, teamwork, and loyalty. He realizes how much these experiences also influence his thinking. The knowledge of being able to act calmly and level-headedly in extreme situations strengthens his character. And even though he initially had doubts as to whether he would find a place in this big new world of Salem, this commitment shows him that he can overcome challenges both at school and outside of it. It is also the experience of self-efficacy that drives him. Lukas realizes that he is able to actively and directly influence the lives of others by becoming part of such an important group as the fire brigade. This not only gives him the feeling that he is needed, but also the confidence that he will be able to take on greater challenges in the future. His involvement in the fire brigade is therefore not only a practical learning process, but also a fundamental building block on his path to becoming a self-confident and responsible young adult. Learning at school Schloss Salem, the path of Lukas. Lukas sits at his desk in one of the castle's history rooms. The walls are covered with shelves full of books, and the large window front offers a view of the expansive park and the Lake Constance region. The lessons are not like the schools he used to know. Here it's not about memorizing facts, but about understanding, about delving deeper into topics and issues. First impressions of the lessons. In his first few weeks at school Schloss Salem, Lukas is impressed by the independence he is given. Active doing. This is the principle that the teachers emphasize time and again. Instead of just taking notes, pupils are expected to carry out independent research, ask questions, and carry out projects. Today, the topic of energy and technology is on the timetable. Lukas, who has always been interested in machines and physical relationships, is immediately enthusiastic. The lessons are not just about the theory of physics and technology, but also about how these principles can be applied in practice. In an experiment on energy conversion, Lukas and his classmates are allowed to build a small built wind turbine. He quickly realizes that it is not only important to have the right knowledge, but also think creatively and work in a team. Individual support and Lukas' development. Lukas realizes that the teachers here in Salem not only try to teach the material, but also focus on the individual strengths of each pupil. In the first few weeks, Lukas is often asked to find solutions independently and to scrutinize his results. During a project on sustainable energy generation, Lukas suggests constructing a small solar system to better understand how solar cells work. The teacher looks on approvingly. That is an interesting approach, Lukas. Try it out and come back tomorrow or after tomorrow with your results. It is the freedom and the promotion of independence that increasingly challenges and inspires Lukas. Instead of always waiting for instructions, he is learning to take responsibility for his own learning process. The teachers emphasize experimental learning, so that Lukas' learning does not only consist of the classroom, but also of his own experiments, which he carried out independently. Understanding connections. During the lessons, Lukas realizes how much more he learns when he really engages with the content. In a physics lesson, the teacher explains to him that the truth is not always to be found in just one approach. There is often more than one solution to a problem. Lukas, it's important to consider different perspectives and then decide which theory or method makes the most sense. Lukas realizes that it's not just about knowing the facts, but also about questioning the plausibility of information. Another subject he particularly enjoys is astronomy, where he researches the various theories about the universe. He begins to take an interest in the connections between different disciplines and realizes how closely physics and technology are linked in the modern world. Lukas' social development and challenges. Schule Schloss Salem not only demands academic achievement, but also the social and personal development of its pupil. This is particularly evident in life together at the boarding school. Lukas soon realizes that he has to act not just as an individual, but as a part of community. In the first few weeks, there are moments when Lukas sees his social skills put to test. Some of his classmates already have a lot of experience in teamwork and are very self-confident. Others, like Lukas, find it even more difficult to integrate into the group. But over time, the social aspect of learning also becomes more important for Lukas. During a joint project on the principles of energy generation, he realizes how important it is to work together and support each other. Lukas learns to contribute his own strengths to the team and at the same time to appreciate the skills of others, especially in the fire brigade group. He has chosen Lukas experiences for the first time what it means to take responsibility for others and to find solutions together in a difficult situation. The role of the school in the digital age. Schule Schloss Salem places particular emphasis on critical thinking and the ability to evaluate and categorize information, skills that are indispensable in the digital age. Lukas realizes that these skills are not only required in the classroom, but also in real life. In a discussion about the ethical implications of new technologies, Lukas has to learn not only the present facts, but also to understand the moral and social consequences of technology. In media skills, Lukas learns how to critically analyze information from the internet. The ability to distinguish fake news from well-founded news is an important realization for him. While many of these classmates continue to be influenced by superficial information, Lukas begins to think in a differentiated way and not blindly rely on quick answers. The development of Lukas as a responsible citizen. By the end of the school year, Lukas has not only grown academically, but also as a responsible citizen. He has learned that knowledge does not only exist in the form of facts, but that the key to truth education lies in developing understanding and actively applying this knowledge. Schule Schloss Salem has not only given him the foundation for his academic and professional future, but also the tools he needs to act confidently and responsibly in a complex world. Lukas now knows that he not only has a role to play at the school, but also in the outside world. And with the knowledge he has gained, he feels ready to take on the challenge of changing the world. Lukas' decision to go hiking. It's the day after the A-levels. Lukas stands at the window of the room in the boarding school and looks out over the expansive castle grounds. The past year has been a time of intensive learning, both academically and personally. Not only has he passed the A-level, but he also has developed a deep love for nature and the wider world. The physical challenges of the fire brigade group and the many discussions at school have awakened in him a desire to learn more about himself and the world. Despite being proud of his academic achievements, Lukas feels an emptiness. It is a kind of longing for something greater than his strict walls at Salem, for an experience that will continue to shape him. He remembers the many hikes he took with his father on the farm, the moments when he was able to retreat with own thoughts. But now he wants to experience more. The idea for the hike.
Draußen ist es richtig kalt, das Feuer brennt schon im Kamin, es wärmt die ganze Wohnung auf. Wir schauen aus dem Fenster raus, es prasselt, lodert, knackt ganz laut, es gibt zurück der Sonne Kraft, die angenehme Wärme schafft. Wir schauen hinaus in die Natur.
Wir sehen dort die Jahreszeiten in unseren Gedanken schon. Wir warten auf des Frühlingszeiten, die Blüten langsam vorbereiten. Die Knospen kann man jetzt schon sehen, die an dem Mandelbaum entstehen. Der Mensch steht dann in Blütenpracht, das Herz voll innerer Freude lacht. Wir sehen dort die Jahreszeiten in unseren Gedanken schon. Wir warten auf des Frühlingszeiten, die Blüten langsam vorbereiten.
Die Knospen kann man jetzt schon sehen, die an dem Mandelbaum entstehen.
Der Mensch steht dann in Blütenpracht,
Das Herz voll innerer Freude lacht.
die Blüten langsam vorbereiten, die Blüten langsam vorbereiten.
On a quiet evening, when Lukas is sitting together with the best friends Max and Felix on the old fireplace arch of the castle, he has an idea. I'm going to go on a hike, he suddenly says, and his voice sounds determined. I'm going to hike across Europe and see the world from different perspective. It's time for me to find my own way. Max looks at him with wide eyes. You? Wandering? Alone? Lukas looks. Yes. I want to know what's out there waiting for me. I want to get to know the world that I only know from books and stories. I've learned so much about physics, technology and history, but now I want to see the people and places that are part of it, the farewell and the preparation. The decision to leave school and embark on this journey is not an easy one for Lukas. He has to say goodbye to everything he has come to over the past few years, his friends, the familiar faces of his teachers, and the paths he has traveled every day. But this decision is also a step towards freedom, a step into the unknown. He begins to prepare himself. packing a rucksack, getting sturdy shoes, and working out a route. His journey will take him through various countries, from Germany to Switzerland, France and Italy. He wants to go through mountains and forests, traveling, exploring towns, and shopping off in small villages to talk to the people who live there. His A-level and school-leaving certificate gave him the feeling that he has found closure, but the hike becomes a new beginning for him, a farewell to the security that school and his family have given him, and a step into uncertainty, the beginning of the journey. The first day of the hike dawns. Lukas stands on the outskirts of Salem and looks back once again. The fields, the school, the hills of Lake Constance. He leaves it all behind. He feels liberated, as if he is opening a new chapter in his life. The rucksack is heavy, but the feeling of setting off weighs much more. During the first few days, he walks through wide fields. The sun shines on his face, and the wind carries the scent of grass and earth with it. The rhythm of walking becomes a kind of meditation for him. He thinks about everything he has experienced in recent years, about the school, about the boarding school, about Anna and the people who have shaped him. The hike will give him a new perspective on himself and the world. He realizes that it is not only the big experiences that leave their mark on you, but also the small moments of pause when you stand at the edge of the path and perceive the world in its simple beauty. The path to yourself. With every kilometer that Lukas walks, he learns more about himself. At first, it is a challenge to get used to the long days of walking. His feet ache and his rucksack gets heavier and heavier. But the solitude and tranquility of the forest give him a new clarity. He listens to the sound of nature, the rustling of the trees in the wind, the bubbling of a stream, all of which have a calming effect of him. He realizes how much he needs this silence to listen to himself. Lukas meets many people on his journey. In the small villages, he talks to old men and women who invite him to eat with him, or to traveling pilgrims who tell him stories from their lives. These encounters make him stop and think again and again about what is really important in life. And after a long, strenuous hike through the Alps, Lukas arrives in a small, remote village in South Tyrol. He sits in a cafe and looks out over the mountains. I've made it, he thinks, and a satisfied smile spreads across his face. I've taken the first step. The world is much bigger than what I know, and I want to discover much more. A large old timbered building on his way. Lukas steps carefully through the creaky door of the half-timbered house and is greeted by the smell of wood, planks and oil. The room is white and flooded with light, and in the center of the room stands an old steam locomotive, marked by time but still majestic. Its steaming pipes and gleaming boiler radiate a calm power, as if it could tell a story of countless journeys itself. The locomotive is in good conditions, its metal surface polished and shiny, almost as if it had been speeding through the countryside yesterday. Lukas stands motionless for a moment, his hand unconsciously buried in the pockets of his jacket. The room is silent, broken only by the soft hissing of steam and the cracking of rails leading out of the wall and floor. The rail seems to lead in all directions, to the left, to the right, as if luring Lukas to unknown places and adventures. He walks slowly towards the locomotive, his footstep echoing on the old wooden floor. Curiosity and amazement fill him as he sees the many trailers coupled to the locomotive. Some are still, others seem to be waiting to be set in motion again. Where do these tracks come from? Thinks Lukas, wondering why the steam locomotive is here.
The train of the tides, there it goes. Can you believe in it? You're already on it. It smokes and it whistles. It takes a lot of strength, but it has created in you much realization made. How long will it drive? It's only up to you. Traveling through time, but finally to you. Of the tides, there it goes. Can you believe in it? You're already on it. It smokes and it whistles. It takes a lot of strength, but it has created in you much realization made. It's only up to you. Traveling through time, but finally to you. To you.
Time seems to tick differently in this room. Lukas feels drawn to its secret power, as if this place were inviting him on a journey to himself. Unconsciously, he stretches out his hand, almost as if he wants to touch the locomotive and be guided by its energy. The steam hisses again, and suddenly he realizes this place, this locomotive, they mean more than just mechanical wonder. They are the key to something great. What story you have to tell? Asked Lukas quietly, as if he were addressing the steam engine. But in the silence of the room, it remains just a question. A soft rattling of the chains on the rails can be heard. It seems as if it wants to answer him. Lukas decides to investigate further, and perhaps, when the time is right, he will find out more about this place and discover the secrets of the locomotive and its journey through space and time. Lukas carefully climbs onto the locomotive, pulling himself up to the old, rusty steps. The metal under his hands feels surprisingly solid and stable. As he examined the surface of the locomotive more closely, the steam locomotive exudes a mixture of elegance and power. Every detail seems to tell of a bygone era when such machines formed the backbone of the industrialization. He is now standing on the platform in front of the locomotive, which houses huge black boilers in the center of the frame. The boiler itself is still in good condition. On the outside, a smooth, shiny surface that gleams in the dim light of the hall. A multitude of pipe-like lines lead from his boiler to various fittings, which Lukas looks at with amazement. The pressure valves and safety valves, which control the pressure of the steam, are precise and well preserved. They are mechanical marvels that seem almost out of date today. He moves on to look at the locomotive's driver's cab. The wooden paneling is covered in patina and the windows are dirty. But looking through them gives him the feeling of being in another age. The space in the cab is surprisingly large, and most of the fittings appear to be intact. The steam pressure gauge, which is normally divided into red and green, shows the constant value, although he knows that this is impossible. The locomotive is a standstill after all. Lukas grips one of the levers that controls the vapor pressure regulation. The lever is heavy and feels as if it could set the whole world in motion if you just put it in the right place. There's also the steam supply control, another set of wheels that helps the driver control the precise thrust and speed of the locomotive. Looking up to the chimney that leads to the boiler, Lukas imagines the steam rising through the pipe with tremendous force to drive the mighty wheels that turned with every stroke when the locomotive was still moving. Next to the driver's cab, Lukas can see the locomotive's huge tender. The tender is full to bursting with coal, a mixture of hard coal and brown coal, which was used in those days to generate the necessary heat. It smells of the old days, of the labor that went into each locomotive. Lukas lifts one of the coals and let it trickle through his hand, feeling the heaviness and the energy contained in each individual lump. He climbs further into the tender and pulls a small lever that feeds the coal into the fire. The mechanism puffs and squeaks as if it has been waiting a long time to get back into action. What a machine, thinks Lukas, as he looks again in the boiler and the wheels of the locomotive. It is a mixture of work of art and engineering achievement, a reminder of a time when such machines still characterized daily life. The wheels of the locomotive are of impressive size, huge iron wheels with deep marks that bear witness to years of traveling on the rail. Lukas feels like he is part of this world, as if the locomotive is telling him a story. But despite its silent presence, there seems to be something else, something invisible in the air, an energy that Lukas cannot immediately grasp. It is as if the locomotive is waiting for its next mission. When are you going to drive again? Lukas asks quietly, but the locomotive doesn't answer. It just stands there, calm and magic. While the sweat beats on Lukas' forehead and the urge to find out more grows. Lukas opens the heavy door of the trailer, which gives way with a soft squeak. The scent of old wood and the hint of iron mingle in the air as he steps inside. The interior is sparsely lit, the light falling through small, barred windows that make the design of the van an almost antique relic. The floor is made of solid wood, polished, smooth, but the years have left traces of use here and there. The bench on which he sits feels pleasantly hard, but also solid, like something that has withstood a powerful storm for decades. Lukas leans back and looks at the wood-paneled wall. He feels an almost nostalgic calm rise up in him as he imagines how this carriage once rolled through landscapes, pulled by steam power, roaring through the old houses and pipes under the locomotive. He listens to the silence of the carriage. Those thoughts about the steam locomotive and the history of this machine begin to mingle with his own story. What if this carriage shows me the way to something new? Thinks Lukas as he looks out of the window. The birds are singing outside and he can hear the rustling of the leaves in the wind. But here in this car he feels like he is another time, a part of something bigger that has more to do with the past than the future. Perhaps this journey would show him more than just landscapes. Perhaps it would help him to understand himself and his place in the world more clearly. The door creaks again. It opens a crack. An elderly man enters, his face weather-beaten and his long coat worn at the edges by time. Aha! Someone has chosen the old car, he says, with a smile that reflects the deep wisdom of his years. Have you thought about where these tracks will take you to? Lukas looks up and sees a spark in the man's eyes, as if he knew Lukas was about to embark on a journey far beyond the physical. The old man looks on with a knowing smile that looks like he is from another world. Backward? He mumbles more to himself than to Lukas. Sometimes the way back is the one that opens your eyes to your true destination. Then he turns to the engine and pulls a lever that indicates the steam pressure with a soft hiss. Suddenly, the silence is broken by the powerful whistle of the locomotive. And the slight vibration runs through the carriage as the steam engine, which was so majestically quiet a moment ago, slowly comes to life. The steam increases, the hissing of the valves mingles with the metallic clanking of chain and cogwheels as they start to move. Lukas feels the carriage moving beneath him, the wheel beginning to turn on the rail, although he doesn't notice any visible movement from outside. What's happening here? Asks Lukas, more to himself than to the old man standing quietly next to him, his hands clasped behind his back. It's the magic of the old machines that are still connected to the world. The conductor explains calmly, and also the magic of time, which doesn't draw a clear line here. You'll see, my boy, the journey you are about to take will not only take you through space, but also through time. The locomotive now seems to have mysteriously shifted into reverse. The walls of the carriage vibrate gently as the train picks up speed, and the fog enveloping the landscape outside thickens. Lukas looks out of the window and sees how the familiar fields and forests are slowly beginning to change. The trees are getting bigger, older, and the landscape is changing at a pace he can't explain. First just the colors, which change from green to gold and brown. Then the buildings, old stone houses that suddenly seem to be from another time, almost medieval. And with every meter that passes, Lukas begins to suspect that he has embarked on a journey beyond the familiar. You see, says the conductor, who is now standing upright next to him, the world suddenly becomes clearer to you if you do not only look forward, but also have the courage to dare to look back. Lukas feels a tingling in his chest, something he never expected, a feeling of revival, as if he was on a journey that went much further than just across the room. The return journey could perhaps be a journey into the past, into the essence of things. Are you ready for what's to come? The conductor asked with a smile that is more of an invitation than a question. Lukas feels his curiosity and courage grow. He looks and leans towards the window again as the locomotive travels with the power of the past into a future that is only just beginning to unfold. Lukas pressed his forehead to the window, his hands clasped around the cold frame as he gazed out at the passing landscape. What he saw was no longer the familiar countryside, no longer the modern villages and sprawling fields he knew from his time in Salem. Instead, he saw old charming timber-framed cottages covered in shingles and overgrown with moss and ivy at the corners. The streets were cobbled, made of irregular stones, and there were lanterns on the street corner, their light penetrating the twilight mist in a soft glow. He blinked and rubbed his eyes. "What's going on there?" he asked himself quietly. But when he looked out of the window, it was obvious. Everything has changed. It was as if time had taken on a different dimension. The vehicles that now lined to the street were those of the steam engine era. Carriages with horses, decorated wagons, and heavy loads pulled by huge machines that filled the air with thick cloud of smoke. Lukas could hardly believe what he was seeing. The cars he knew from home were no longer there. Instead, carts pulled along the streets, driven by huge steaming machines. Horses walked through the streets with clattering hoofs, and in the distance you heard the hammering of forges working iron and steel as if it were a bygone era. As he continued to look around, he noticed that the peoples were different too. They wore old-fashioned clothes with long coats, hats, and skirts that blew in the wind. Some even waved to him as they walked along the barriers when they saw the train. Lukas couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was as if he had been transported back in time. The white vapor that constantly escaped from the locomotive's chimneys could now be seen just outside the windows. A thick fog that blurred the world outside and gave the train the appearance of an unstoppable ghost of the past. The vapor enveloped everything, breaking through the real images and immersing Lukas in a world that seemed both familiar and strange at the same time. How is this possible? Thought Lukas as he sank deeper into the bench, still looking out of the window. It was as if he had stepped through an invisible gateway into a past that he only knew from stories, a time that had never belonged to him but was now his reality. The conductor, who had been standing quietly next to him the whole time, seemed to read his thoughts. There are places where the boundaries of space and time become blurred, he said in a low, almost philosophical tone. A train like this isn't just a means of transport. It's a vehicle of memory, And perhaps, Lukas, you are the one to experience this memory. Lukas just looked as the world continued to transform before his eyes. It was not just a physical journey, but a journey through the eras of history. The journey had only just begun, and he sensed that it would take him to places far beyond anything he had ever imagined. The train braked with a distinctive sharp squeal that pierced the air and reverberated in Lukas' ears. The locomotive jolted slightly as it reached the huge station at a slow, steady pace. Lukas felt the change in motion and the slight jolt as the train came to the halt. Slowly, the vapor settled into the air, leaving behind a thick, humid atmosphere. He looked out of the window and saw a breathtaking sight. The railway station where they had landed was huge. A monumental dome arched above it, its glass walls catching and reflecting the subdued light of the afternoon. The light refracted in 1,000 colors as it hit the artistically decorated stone walls. The architecture of the building was impressive and magnificent, a mixture of past grandeur and mystical charm that made Lukas feel as if he had stepped into another time. The conductor looked towards a small, old-fashioned door that led to the exit areas. "You'll be staying in a boarding house here for a few days," he explained, his voice calm and unexcited. "The locomotives need servicing. Fresh water is being pumped into the boilers and some repairs are needed. It could take a few days to use the time to look around here and explore the town." Lukas looked slowly, his thoughts a tiny bit more confused, but also full of curiosity. "Where exactly should I go?" he asked. "Just follow the main path," the conductor replied. "You'll find a small inn near the market square. The owner are very friendly. They look after you well. If you need anything, you can always find me here at the station." The conductor pointed to a small station nearby, crowned by a tall tower. Lukas packed up his few things he had and got out of the carriage. The station was warm, and the steam from the locomotive still hung in the air as he stepped onto the cobbled path. The people who filled the station wore traditional dress, and Lukas felt like a stranger in a world that seemed at once so foreign and yet so familiar. He walked through the mighty halls and out into the city that lay before him. Everything seemed to be in another time, as if from a century-long past, and yet the spirit of this world was alive. It was as if he had taken a step further into history, where the boundaries of space and time merged together. He walked through the street lined with half-timbered houses and soon reached the inn that the conductor had mentioned, a large, well-preserved building with a welcoming open entrance. A pleasant warmth emanated from inside as Lukas entered and was greeted warmly by the elderly lady behind the counter. "Ah, a new guest," she said with a smile. "You'll feel at home here. Relax and enjoy your time. Everything is different here, but also somehow just right." Lukas looked as he looked for a table and settled down. The moment that felt like a bridge between worlds had now become real, and with every breath he took, he knew that the journey continued and that many more questions awaited him. The lady behind the counter handed Lukas a simple key hanging from a worn wooden pendant. "Room 33, she said with a friendly smile. "It has the best view of the lake. You will love it. Lukas gratefully accepted the key and followed the lady who led him through the corridor of the inn. The carpet beneath his feet muffled his steps, and the building was quiet, accompanied only by the gentle rustle of the wind and the occasional crack in the wooden walls. The walls were adorned with old gold-framed painting depicting scenes of rural landscape and elegant dance balls. When he finally opened the door to room 33, he entered the room flooded with the light of the setting sun. The furnishing were simple but neat. A soft bed with a sky blue throw, an antique desk made of dark wood, and a small armchair in the corner that offered a marvelous view of the window and the lake. Lukas stepped to the window and looked out. A picturesque little lake stretched out before him, its surface reflecting the late light of dusk in shining silver streaks. Small winding paths led around the lake, lined with tall trees whose branches swayed gentle in the wind. It was an image that reminded him of times gone by, of the elegance and peace he had sometimes wished for in his homeland. But as he looked further out, he noticed the people strolling along. In long, elegant dresses and suits, a group of beautiful women talking and smiling. Some wore hats and walked around the lake in an unagitated, almost dancing motion. It was an image from another era, one that was so different from the reality of his previous life. A faint hint of longing rose up to him. His thoughts immediately turned to Anna, the friend he had always written to regularly. He had told her so much about his journey, about the things he had experienced and the fascinating but also confusing discoveries he had made. But even he couldn't deny how much he missed her. It was as if the words he wrote to her in the letters were no longer enough to describe the feeling that burned deep in his heart. The beauty of this new, strange world, the mystical feeling of the place and the elegant appearances of the people around him made him feel lonely and yearning. It was not only the longing for Anna, but also the wish that he could perhaps find something of the security and safe home he knew from the farm. But the world he now found himself was different. It was full of opportunities, but also full of challenges that he did not yet fully understand. The lake, the people, and the soft music that now drifted to him from afar all seemed to be part of this puzzle that he was beginning to solve piece by piece. The soft classical music wafting through the air brought him back to the present, and slowly he sat down on the bed. Thoughts of Anna and the world he had left behind were still present, but the future in this new, mysterious place beckoned with all its undiscovered beauty. Lukas stopped up and put on a light jacket before leaving the room. The fresh evening air greeted him immediately as he closed the door behind him. The path around the lake was characterized by a peaceful silence. Only the soft lapping of the water and the rustling of leaves in the trees interrupted the silence. He strolled slowly along the path that wound around the lake. The sun had almost set, and the soft light bathed the scenery in a golden glow. On the other side on the lake, he could make out the silhouettes of women now strolling in the twilight, their conversations and occasional laughter driving softly over to him. The light breeze carried with the scent of flowers and fresh grass. Lukas sat down on a bench under a large tree that stretched its branches far out over the lake, as if to envelop the water in shade. Here, on this bench, he felt detached from everything else for a moment. The events of the day, the strange journey through time, and the old conductor who left it up to him to decide whether he wanted to travel forward or backward. It all seemed distant and somehow unreal now. He closed his eyes and let the moment sink in. The music he had heard at the inn was still in the air, but now the melodies sounded softer, almost like a memory. Lukas thought of home, of simple things he had left there, the sound of the farm, the closeness of his family, the familiar life he had to give up to enter the strange new world. A soft breeze blew across the water, causing the light of the setting sun to dance on the surface in countless glittering waves. Lukas took a deep breath and felt himself slowly relaxed. Somehow there was something calming about the place. Perhaps it was the time he spent here, an opportunity to find something he had been missing on his homeland, or maybe something completely new that he didn't understand. As he sat here, he contemplated the changes he was experiencing and wondered where the journey would take him. Was it just another stage on a path that would eventually take him back home? Or was this the start of something completely new? Whatever he discovered, he knew it wouldn't be easy. But at this moment, on this bench by the lake, he could at least give himself a short break before he found out what came next. Lukas re-entered the guest house and was immediately greeted by the aroma of freshly cooked food. The atmosphere was cozy and warm. The tables covered with fine white cloths, candle flickering on the tables and casting a soft golden light into the room. The other guests were chatting quietly, and the atmosphere was relaxed and almost intimate. Lukas sat down at the table near the window and ordered dinner. The food, like most things here, was simply yet but exquisite. The flavors were strong but balanced, the ingredients fresh and local. There was a tender beefsteak cooked to perfection with a rich sauce and a flavorsome mashed potato. The red wine, a full bottled, dark-colored drop, rounded off the meal perfectly. Lukas took a sip and felt the warmth of the wine spread into. At the moment, time seemed to slow down, and everything felt calming in a way. While he was enjoying his meal, he noticed a woman at the neighboring table looking at him attentively. She had dark hair that fell in soft waves over her shoulders and wore an elegant but simple dress. Her eyes, a deep green color, radiated a mixture of curiosity and interest. Finally, she leaned forward slightly, looked at Lukas, and asked with a friendly smile, "I hope you like it. I've never seen you here before. Are you new in this neighborhood?" Lukas was surprised for a moment, but her open manner took away his shyness. "Yes," he replied. "I've only just arrived. Along a hike a few days in this area to look around a bit." "That sounds exciting," she said. "And what's taking you so far from home? In search of something specific?" Her voice was soft, but with a clear curiosity that piqued Lukas' interest. She had a smile that was accompanied by a certain melancholy, as if she herself had a story to tell. "It's a long story," Lukas began and thought for a moment. "I've been thinking a lot about myself over the last few years, after finishing school, after everything I've done so far. And now I'm here, on this journey, to maybe find something. I don't know what it is yet." The woman looked sympathetic, as if she knew more than she wanted to admit. "Sometimes it's not the path that leads us to," she said quietly, "but the question that sends us to the journey." Her words echoed in Lukas' mind, as if they touched a deep hidden spot in him. "And what about you?" he asked after a short pause. "Do you come here often?" She shook her head, her eyes gazing thoughtfully into the distance for a moment. "I don't come here often, but sometimes, when I need a break. There's something calming about this place. Maybe because it's so quiet, so far away from everything else we know." Lukas looked and felt a silent connection forming between them. It was as if they were both searching for similar things in different forms, and perhaps This was the beginning of a new acquaintance or more. He didn't know. But at this moment, with a delicious meal, with the soft light and the soothing sound of conversation around them, it felt right. Maybe we can talk tomorrow, if you fancy it, Lukas suggested as she took another sip of red wine, savoring the warm feeling that was slowly spreading through him. I'd love to, she replied, a mischievous smile on her lips. I have a feeling we have a lot to talk about. The conversation continued, and during the evening Lukas realized that time was flying by. But inside him, he sensed a new direction that this journey was taking him. Perhaps it wasn't just the place that was changing him, but also the people he was meeting here. And the questions running through his mind slowly began to form a picture that he hadn't had before. When Lukas opened the door of the guest house after dinner and stepped outside, he was greeted by a sight that took his breath away for a moment. In front of the door was an old car, its paintwork unmarked by time, but always exuding a certain proud flair. It was a 1905 Rio, standing almost majestically in the twilight of the evening. The gleaming chrome parts and the imposing front of the car reminded him of the elegant technology of the days gone by. The wheels seemed almost ponderous, yet with dignity that could outlast the centuries. Lukas stepped closer, his footsteps echoing softly on the gravelled paths as he looked at the vehicle. A few guests were standing in a group, chatting animatedly. The conversations were not about current affairs, but about the Kaiser and the era of the German Empire. Lukas could hardly believe what he was hearing. People were talking about a time that he only knew from history books, about major political upheavals, about the military and traditions that had long been a thing of the past. An older man wearing a big cap and sporting a beard was loudly explaining the importance of the Kaiser for the country. He was a man of honor, of tradition. We had our orders, our culture, he said, raising his hand as if to symbolize an almost solemn reminder. Lukas stood there, listening to the people's words, and suddenly the scales fell from his eyes. The people clothes, the elegant suits of the man, the fine dresses of the woman, were not modern, but came from a bygone era. It was as if he had traveled back in time, as if the locomotive had taken him back now, not only in time, but also in space. The old Rio and the conversation he heard around him now gave him the answer to all the questions he had been asking himself. The people here, the time, the place, all of this was no longer anchored in his present. He had not only traveled to another country, but to another time. The locomotive had taken him to the year 1905, to a world in which the emperor still ruled, in which cars like the Rio adorned the streets, and people lived in a completely different time. The realization came over him like a shock. How was this possible? Had he just imagined it all? But the proof was right in front of him, with the old carriage, the people's clothes, and the conversations about the political situation in the imperial area. Lukas could hardly believe it. But at the moment he also felt a strange sense of calm. Everything was different, yes, but at the same time he also felt welcome in this time. In a strange way, perhaps it was the historical atmosphere, perhaps the encounters with the people here. But for a moment he forgot the worries and doubts he had plagued him into his own time. Here in this time, everything seemed to have a deeper meaning, as if he had stepped into a story that went far beyond his own life. He turned around and went back to the boarding house. It was late and he knew he still had a lot to process. But a new feeling welled up in his chest, a mixture of curiosity and wonder. What should he do next? Should he explore time further to try to figure out how to get back to his own time? And what else would the journey bring him if he continued to linger in this strange world?
Good night, my darling. It's time to go to sleep. After a long day of work, sleep will embrace you deep. You'll drift into a dream, thinking of the good times you've seen. Even in dreams you're ready when morning comes steady. When you awaken in the light and think again of work's plight, remember the times that were bright, guiding you through life's flight. When you awaken in the light and think again of work's plight, remember the times that were bright, guiding you through life's flight. When you awaken in the light and think again of work's plight, remember the times that were bright, guiding you through life's flight.
Lukas woke up the next morning in his room, which was filled with a pleasant calm. The room was furnished in the style of the early 19th, a large imposing bed with a thick feather duvet that held him in a gentle embrace. The wood of the floor creaked slightly under his movements, and the heavy curtains that adorned the window let in just enough sunlight to create a golden glow in the room. The ray of the rising sun fell directly on his face and gently woke him from his reverie. He blinked and straightened up. Everything still seemed like a dream. Last night, the conversations, the locomotive, and now this wonderful, almost unreal morning in a hotel room that seemed to come from the past. It was as if he had fallen into another world, a world in which time stood still and everything hovered in an almost magical calm. Lukas felt a slight nervousness rising with him. Would he ever come back? Would he be able to return to his own time? It was a question that had plagued him since the arrival. But as the sun continues to shine through the window and the birds sang their song outside, he felt calm for the first time in a long time. The future seemed far away, and at the moment all that matters what was present. The smell of the breakfast, the gentle lapping of the lake outside, and the warmth of the room that enveloped him. He got up, dressed, and stepped to the window. The landscape that presented itself to him was a rare beauty. The lake glistened in the sunlight, and the path that circled it was lined with old trees. Everything was so peaceful, as if time didn't exist here, or at least ran at a different rhythm. The thought of the locomotive that had brought him here came back to his mind. The conductor who had given him the choice of traveling forward, backward, everything seemed to fit together with incredible logic. But now, in this moment, he wondered whether it was really just coincidence or whether he would find a deeper meaning in this journey. He pulled the thick feather blanket over his shoulders once more to escape the cool morning breeze and let himself sink back into bed. His thoughts wandered to Anna, to his parents, to the farm, all the things he had left behind. But was it really a loss? Or was it the beginning? An adventure that was just waiting to be discovered? With all these thoughts, he slept for another hour, dreaming of the possibilities that lay ahead. And perhaps he would eventually find an answer, not only to how he could return, but also to what it meant for him to live in this past time. After breakfast, which had spoiled him with a mixture of classic European delicacies, Lukas made his way back to the station. The morning was clear and the cool air refreshing. The lake glistened in the sunlight as he made his way back to the building that had so confused and intrigued him yesterday. Everything seemed so familiar and yet so strange. When he finally reached the station, the conductor was already standing next to the locomotive, gleaming in the sun. The train wasn't ready to leave yet, but it was clearly prepared for the journey. Lukas stepped over to him and asked cautiously, "What's actually happened? Why I'm here? And what exactly is this journey I've embarked on?" The conductor, an older man with a friendly but mysterious air, looked at him with a knowing smile. "You're here, Lukas," he began, "because you found the right time. Your journey has not only brought you to this place, but has also changed your perception of time and space. The train you have boarded is no ordinary train. It's a vehicle that takes you to the place you need right now, both for your mind and for your heart." Lukas looked at the conductor in confusion. "So, what exactly is this? What I'm supposed to learn here? What is this time I'm in?" The conductor looked thoughtful. "You're in a time that you've only experienced for a moment, but you can discover so much in it. It's a place that helps you find answers that you can't find in your own world. But you have to be willing to learn, not just with your heart, but also with your head. That's the real journey, the journey of understanding everyone here was something they have in store for you." Lukas was silent. He thought about that the conductor had said. And what happens if I don't want to be here anymore? "Then just keep going," the conductor replied. "If you are prepared to ask the question that means the most to you when you find the answers. But remember, it's not just a journey through space and time. It's also a journey you're taking with yourself." Lukas looked slowly as he understood the depths of the words. It was more than just a journey. It was a journey to himself. But the more he thought about it, the more questions arose. What was the real reason for this journey? What would he learn when he returned? And above all, what was his purpose in this new world? Time seemed to stand still when the conductor signaled that it was time to move on. The train was ready, and Lukas knew that he had to make a decision at that moment, a decision that would not only change his journey, but also his life.
The train of time moves on, no longer seen, forever gone. The conductor is a wise old man, a guardian of the ages span. Those he sends upon their way still believe in chance today. This time Lukas takes the ride to pave the path, to be the guide. His children one day will arise, though he does not yet realize. Like pearls upon a silver thread, they'll shape the path where mankind treads. The train of time moves on, no longer seen, forever gone. The conductor is a wise old man, a guardian of the ages span. Those he sends upon their way still believe in chance today. This time Lukas takes the ride to pave the path, to be the guide. His children one day will rise, though he does not yet realize. Like pearls upon a silver thread, they'll shape the path where mankind treads. His children one day will arise, though he does not yet realize.
The conductor almost seemed to read Lukas' thoughts as he continued. You're not the first, Lukas. Many have made this journey before. You've learned from school wisdom, but now it's time to turn it into life wisdom. It's like the transition from pure knowledge to wisdom. The knowledge you have gathered in Salem, on the farm and over the years, is now like the first step on a long journey. But the real value lies in applying it in your daily life with common sense and a deeper insight into the interconnection of the world. Lukas was silent and thought about the words. The time he had spent in Salem had not only given him knowledge, but also the feeling that he was part of something bigger. The discipline he has learned, the challenges he had overcome, and the moments of doubt, all of this had changed him. But what could he really do with all this knowledge? How would he put it all into practice in his world, the world he would return to? What does this mean for me? Lukas finally asked. How do I find a way to make sense of everything I've learned? The conductor took a step back, looked at Lukas, and then said with an air of mystery, "That's a question you will have to answer for yourself. But one thing is certain. The real journey lies not in the speed at which you progress, but in the clarity with which you recognize your destination. You don't need to know everything, but you do need to understand what is really important." Lukas looked at the locomotive, the train that had accompanied him on this extraordinary journey, and felt a wave of understanding rising with him. It wasn't just the moment of return, it was the way he would now look at the world with a newfound perspective and the knowledge that he had the power to make decisions that went beyond the purely logical. He was ready to embrace life with all its challenges, contradictions and lessons. The journey he had just made had shown him that knowledge and wisdom were two sides of the same coin, and now it was up to him to return with a clearer view and an open heart, not just to a place, but to a state of understanding that he had never thought possible. Lukas' thoughts were whirling. The young woman sitting opposite him bore a striking resemblance to Anna. Her face, the eyes, the smile. It was as if she was sitting opposite him from another time. A shiver ran down his spine. Was it a coincidence, or had fate shown him something that was beyond comprehension? He thought back to the conductor's words. "You are not the first, Lukas, to have made this journey." Had he really meant it? Was it possible that time was not just a linear flow, but something that could repeat itself? And if so, what was the deeper context? Had Lukas perhaps experienced more than he realized? Had a past life been hidden behind the curtain of time that now held a moment of clarity for him? Lukas looked out of the window of the locomotive. The landscape passed him by. He was no longer just an observer. Something had changed deep inside him. The journey had not just been a geographical one, but a journey into his innermost being. The encounter with a woman who looked so much like Anna had opened up a rift in reality that left him with new questions. Was time really just a straight line, separating past, present and future? Or was it more like a circle in which things could repeat themselves? He remembered the hours he had spent with Anna on the farm, the conversations, the laughter, the smell of the meadows, and yet the movement he had met the woman at the inn had reminded him of those very memories. Her eyes had looked at him so deeply as if they could summarize the entire course of his life in one glance. Had fate sent him on a journey to close the circle, perhaps to show that things are connected even beyond the dimensions of time? Is there a past life, thought Lukas, or has a certain of time only opened for a moment to show me something that I can't see in reality? It was as if life was waiting for him, giving him a new meaning. Perhaps he was the one who now had to understand that he wasn't just living in the present. Perhaps he had a responsibility to recognize what he needed to learn in order to connect the paths which he only vaguely sensed with the future that lay ahead. He leaned back and closed his eyes. Whether it was a past life or another deeper truth that showed itself to him, Lukas knew that he was now on a journey that would take him far beyond what he had ever thought possible. Lukas felt a deep sense of clarity rise within. The realization that the simple life on the farm, with all its tranquility and closeness to nature, was invaluable to him, flowed through him like a cooled, quiet but steady current. The time in Salem, the journey into the wider world, the encounters and the realizations, all this had shown him something, but deep down he knew that he did not want to remain in a world of knowledge and theory. He had understood the importance of practice, of living with his hands, of working on the land, of striving for a simple yet fulfilling life. That was his true home. The journey he has just made was not only a journey through time, but also a journey to himself. "I have to go back," said Lukas resolutely. "To my old life, to my home." The conductor looked as if he had known that this moment would come. "It's good that you realize that," he said as the train started to move with a gentle lurch. The landscape that passed them was different, familiar, yet a little changed. The feeling of moving through time was back, but Lukas now felt confident in his decision to return. On the way, as the train rolled quietly on, Lukas turned to the conductor and asked a question that had been on his mind for a long time. What would have happened if I had chosen forward instead of backward? The conductor looked at him with a knowing look when he heard the question. If you had gone forward, you would only have seen the world through the prism of your knowledge. You would have experienced the narrow-mindedness of what you think to know, without the possibility of change. It would be a world of thought, but without true understanding. Lukas pondered. So I would only have seen the theory without realizing what really matters? Exactly, said the conductor. It's only those who really know the past who are able to shape the future. Those who are anchored in the history and their own roots understand what is really important. You have experienced this, Lukas. You have learned what is important to you. Only those who live in harmony with the past can truly move into the future. Lukas looked slowly as the conductor's words resonated in him. The journey was more than just a trip to another time. It was a lesson that made him appreciate what he had and understand that true wisdom comes not only from knowledge, but also from experience and the ability to recognize life in its simplicity and depth. He felt as if he had gained a new perspective. It wasn't time that had brought him back. It was his own realization. The train continued on its way, but Lukas knew that he was now returning with a clear view, and in this hurt he carried the knowledge that only those who reconcile themselves with their past are truly able to shape the future.
Lieder, die die Welt bewegen, Menschen, die das Herz erregen, Schwingung, die man fühlen kann, lässt man gern an sich heran. Schwingung, die in Seelen reifen, uns in Frieden ganz ergreifen. Gute Kräfte dieser Welt gibt es nicht für Gut und Geld. Hör den Ton der Änderung, hör nicht auf das Schreien der Deppen, höre nicht auf ihren Zorn. Wahre Stärke kommt von vorn. Harmonie kann ruhig sein, Liebe reicht sich gleich die Hand, steht nicht an der Weltenrand, hat die Dissonanz. Dissonanz gebannt. Führt uns nun zu Glück und Frieden, was den Guten nur beschieden. Lieder, die die Welt bewegen, Menschen, die das Herz erregen, Schwingung, die man fühlen kann, lässt man gern an sich heran. Schwingung, die in Seelen reifen, uns in Frieden ganz ergreifen. Gute Kräfte dieser Welt gibt es nicht für Gut und Geld. Hör den Ton der Änderung, hör nicht auf das Schreien der Deppen, höre nicht auf ihren Zorn. Wahre Stärke kommt von vorn. Harmonie kann ruhig sein, Liebe reicht sich gleich die Hand, steht nicht an der Weltenrand, hat die Dissonanz gebannt. Führt uns nun zu Glück und Frieden, was den Guten nur beschieden.
With a gentle jolt, the train had turned back into the familiar vehicle that Lukas already knew so well. The steam and hiss of the heating no longer sounded to him like a memory of times gone by, but like the familiar sound of a world that he knew carried in his heart. With every kilometer the train traveled, the feeling of returning home grew in him. When he finally reached the farm, it was as if time had made no difference. Everything was exactly as he had left it. The fields, the stables, the familiar smell of hay and earth, but now he knew he didn't want to leave. The simplicity, this connection to the earth and to the people who shaped him, was true happiness for him. Anna, who had been working in the yard, ran towards him. Her smile shone brighter than the sun, and when she wrapped herself in his arms, Lukas knew he was in the right place. It was as if all the questions and doubts had suddenly disappeared. No more great adventures, no more traveling to distant worlds. He had arrived. "I'm staying here, Anna," he said, with a smile that came from deep inside him. "The training I've had has shown me what really matters. The world is big, but my home is here, with you on this farm." Anna squeezed him tighter, as if to make sure he wouldn't leave again. She knew that he had traveled many places, but now he found this. The paths that didn't lead to foreign lands or distant cities, but right into the heart of the world he had always known. And so it was that Lukas and Anna married and spent their lives together on the farm. It wasn't a great adventure that many dreamed of, but for Lukas it was the real adventure. Living with Anna, working on the land, and knowing that he was living in harmony with himself and his past. When they had children and later grandchildren, Lukas told them again and again about his journey, about the tidal train and the conductor who had opened his eyes. His experiences had become stories that lived on in the heart of a family. And so the train that had taken Lukas into the past and into the future became a symbol of what really matters. Not the pursuit of fame or success, but the simplicity of life and wisdom of living in the present. The stories of Lukas and his journey passed from generation to generation, becoming part of the family's legacy. And whenever he immersed himself in a quiet moment, Lukas could hear the silent train traveling on inside him, a tidal train that had accompanied him forever. Would one of the children ever continue his journey?
If happiness is to reach you, you shall know, like the oaks, where is the root of your life? Where is the memory? Will it keep you forever young? Do you seek the love of man? With an open heart full of trust, and do not let yourself be softened. Will evil reach you? Then you are worth the life that the world will finally honor you. If happiness is to reach you, you shall know, like the oaks, where is the root of your life? Where is the memory? Will it keep you forever young? Do you seek the love of man? With an open heart full of trust, and do not let yourself be softened. Will evil reach you? Then you are worth the life that the world will finally honor you.